Oh boy, guys, let me tell you something before I talk about today's movie. I had quite an experience when I went to watch that movie. Well, it's kind of small, but I have to tell you. The movie that I saw today, The Bad Guys, I was really anticipating it. The long story short, the trailer got me hooked because of the animation style. It looks innocent, funny, and well, uh, yeah, it attracted me. For a long term, for a short story, it attracted me, and so basically, I was hooked into the trailer. But of course, this week I had some stuff to do, so I couldn't see it in the usual days that I do it. And well, after I finished some stuff, this day I was determined to watch that movie in the movie theaters. So I woke up in the morning. There was some other stuff to do that I wanted to do. I had to go to New York to watch this interesting art store in order to get a material that I needed. And but before that, I was planning that I will do that after I see the movie on the mall, which is kind of like the usual part where I like to watch the movies, since it's technically the closest one to my home. But guess what? I was standing at the train, at the light rail station. I mean, and somehow the light rail never came. At least the one there where I wanted to go. All the trains that were passing was only to go to the main station, but not to the mall. Which I was like, what is going on? Until the transit police comes, and they told us that something happened something happened in the mall. What was it? Some bus accident or something like that happened on the way. So they closed the road. So I had to take another path. But that path doesn't reach me to the mall. So I decided to make my priorities backwards. I decided to go to New York and go to the store, in which I found the object that I needed, but unfortunately that thing was pretty heavy. So I had to use my backpack to carry it. So I decided to go to the nearest movie theater, and it was on the 34th Street in AMC theaters. I was on 19th Street at the moment, so I had to walk all the way through with this heavy backpack on my back. And when I got there, it was the showing was at 1:30 p.m. And I was like, damn it, it's 12 p.m. So, and I wanted to get things. I wanted to do all the things early. I was desperate. I didn't want to wait, an hour to, just doing nothing with this heavy backpack. And then I saw, okay, there's another AMC theaters on 42nd Street. It's only the show is gonna start in 30 minutes, so I had to run to 42nd Street with this heavy backpack that I had, and I made it in time. And that's the show that I was watching. But unfortunately, also, the movie that I saw had open captions, closed captions. I mean, it had the closed captions for people who are deaf or impaired or anything. They have to watch the subtitles. So I watched the movie because luckily I'm used to subtitles, since I watch a lot of anime, and it didn't bother me. And also because when I watch English dubbed movies in Ecuador, I didn't mind the subtitles. I got used to it, but I can't deny that there's still kind of like it's kind of a little bit of an annoyance that you try to ignore them. But either way, that's the kind of the long story that I had with trying to watch this movie that I was anticipating ever since I saw the trailer. And man, that let me tell you that this whole ordeal was at least worth it, because I just came out really liking the movie. I will say that I just came out loving this movie. It's not perfect, but it was enough for me to bring a smile on my face. And usually the cynical me will say something saying that this is flawed, this is something like that, but somehow I kind of feel like I have the heart to forgive this movie, all the cynicism that sometimes I might come up. I will even exaggerately say that I like this movie even better than Turning Red. And no, I know. There are people who say they like Turning Red. I will state it again that I didn't like Turning Red. I found that movie annoying, and that's all I will say. But there was something of kind of like it's kind of like an innocent simplicity on the bad guys that I found it appealing, to the point that, well, you know what, I can see some things that you could take it an extra step to make it a little bit darker, but you know what, maybe I'll sit this one out, because the movie is charming and fun enough for me to give it a pass. So anyway, let's begin. Let's get started with me talk about the basic element of this movie. So first, the story. The story centers around these group of animals. One in which is led by the big bad wolf. He's played by Sam Rockwell, and he's alongside with his friends the snake, played by Mark Maron, a tarantula, played by Aquafina, a shark, played by Craig Robinson, and a piranha, played by Anthony Ramos. So they are a shark. You get this. It's a shark, a snake, a tarantula. A shark and a piranha. They're basically animals that once you look at them, you will identify them as bad guys. So basically, yeah, they wallow into it. They accept that they are bad guys. So they take this opportunity to rob banks, steal objects, making heists. Just for for the thrill of being that guy. They even make fun of the cops. Technically, almost like an Ocean 11 / Lupin the Third thing, until they decided to make a heist in order to steal kind of like this Good Samaritan award, in which technically after certain events the wolf kind of have a little experience that he made a good deed, and well, he kind of have the first taste of kindness, and it basically makes him reconsider that maybe we should turn into good guys instead of continuing being bad guys. But all, of course, that all involves, of course, a new heist, trying to fool everyone, have friends that they are reluctant or they don't want to turn into good guys. It's kind of like this is kind of like the basic story in itself. Very simple. And if you watch other movies, you see that you saw this thing many times. It's a recycled plot. But this is something that I'm not against. Many people will say that, okay, it gets predictable. I saw what it is. But you know what? This is something that you get mostly with experience. When you see one, you see many of them. Like, for example, me. The more I watch that movie, it kind of made me remind me of, in this case, like, for example, Shrek, let's say, in which we have this ogre in which everyone sees them as the bad guy, and then, but of course, he's kind of like a nice guy deep inside, but he's just, well, still an ogre. Just like the wolf is, he is shunned because he is basically the bad guy in many fairy tales. Unless, of course, he should see some other, other things in which wolves are kind of like the good guys. Well, they didn't search there. But the stereotype on these ones. So yeah, this is kind of like these are kind of like simple stuff that I didn't mind. Although there are some story beats in which the more I see it, I could probably come up with something like a little bit darker, but yet kind of like a more deeper movie, a darker or deeper movie, because I'm that kind of like this kind of guy who sometimes I like to say, okay, this is doing good, but you know what, maybe I'll put it, what I could do, to make it better. But this is just my imagination. It's not like I'm trying to hijack other movies. But bear with me on this one. Let's talk a little bit about the characters. First, we got Sam Rockwell Wolf. His mannerism and the way he talks and all these things, like charming, or according to what the movie describes him, kind of like being George Clooney out of things. He's basically the main character. He's a bad guy, but he's very likable. And by the way, when I say bad guy, I meant pulling heists, robbing banks, scaring people, and all these things. It's not like they're killing people. Man, that will go into a darker route. So, but basically, okay, back to the wolf. The best way I can describe this guy is that he's basically Nick Wilde from Zootopia. That's the best way I can describe this guy. And I dig his story arc, in which he gets kind of like a big taste, kind of like an accidental taste of a good deed in which he thinks, and then he kind of says that, well, it's been a long time since people always get scared of us, except for my peeps and all these things, but now, I kind of begin to like turning into a good guy. So I buy it. That kind of makes him kind of like a character with some kind of redemption arc. Then we got, of course, his best friend, which is the snake. This snake is kind of like a little bit the polar opposite of the wolf. He's the one who actually enjoys more being a bad guy. He is always grumpy, cynical, and a little bit, but he has a soft spot that he's always reluctant to show off. I do have a certain particular problem with this character, but it's mostly but for two reasons. One is mostly bias, because I am really, really afraid of snakes, and yeah, I could stereotype snakes as evil, so I don't mind. I do have this fear of snakes. Kind of makes me kind of like a little bit hard to empathize with this character. Although the other thing that I do wanted to say is that the more I look closely, I could find that there was kind of like an opportunity for this guy to kind of deviate into something that not many family-friendly films will dare to go through. But you know what? I'll get to that. But I will say that it's kind of weird for me that he's always wearing, this kind of like fishing hat and this Hawaiian shirt for whatever snake you call it. And in my head, he I don't know if they wanted to make him, have the mannerism of Danny DeVito, but they just kind of gave him glasses and some pot. He will be one step away from becoming Hunter S. Thompson. Then I want to talk about the tarantula, in which after making a little bit of a research of the source material, I kind of never thought that this was based on a graphic novel or a book that And this one surprised me that they made kind of like changes. In this case is kind of like a gender swap, well, in which I didn't mind, I'll say. But I will say that yeah, this tarantula is basically a hacker, a computer expert, and the biggest thing that I was surprised about this tarantula is that for the first time, in my life, I finally found a character voiced by Aquafina that I can tolerate. Sorry about that. Probably they're gonna arrest me because Probably they're gonna arrest me because all the things I talk smack about Aquafina. But I'm sorry. The only two movies that I saw with Aquafina are none other than Shang-Chi, in which I hated her, and also she was very annoying in Raya and I can't. I always go back with Raya and the Last Airbender / Raya and the Last Dragon. It always goes that. Maybe I have to put a pedestal about most annoying / most bad impactful movie that in my life. If I'm gonna keep talking about Raya and the Last Dragon and going back to it, man. But anyway, the point is that they they didn't have Aquafina, doing her raspy voice or being kind of like a very annoying / useless character like the Shang-Chi character and Raya and all these things. So basically, okay, I'm repeating myself. The thing is that I finally found a movie that I can tolerate her. So that kind of proves that it's not because I don't like the woman herself. But it's mostly on the direction that you give it. And if you can find kind of like an actor that I am particularly not fond of, and finally making something tolerable, I'll give him my respect. What else there is? There is Craig Robinson, of course, playing the shark, in which it's kind of funny that this shark is kind of like a master in disguise, but his disguises is really, really obvious and very poor. He just only puts kind of like this light makeup or dress, and that's it. But apparently everybody in the world is fooled that he's another person. So yeah, cartoon logic. And of course, there's also the piranha who he is because he talks a little bit of Spanish. This is why they have a kind of like a Spanish speaking actor. And well, he's basically kind of like the muscle of the team. He's very, very crazy, aggressive, kind of like piranhas are. But also he has kind of like the flaw that whenever he gets nervous, he gets this toxic gas fart. That's the thing with this character. There are some other characters that also enriches the world. Like for example, there is the governor, who is this fox named Diane Foxington, played by Sassy Beats. She basically kind of becomes kind of like the polar opposite of the wolf, and they kind of begin to share kind of like a romantic relationship. But deep inside her, there's kind of like a three-dimensionality on her character, and she comes into, and she's kind of like one of the most likable characters there is. She actually kind of became one of my favorite characters in that movie. And there is something deep on her, in which makes her really awesome, I'll say. And I do like that she's kind of like with a character that can even relate to the wolf, considering that foxes are also on the same spectrum that they also stereotype. It's just like, again, it's just like Nick Wilde. If you are technically a wolf or a fox and everyone is gonna look at you like that, then well, why bother changing the things? So that was kind of like really interesting. To come to think about think about Miss Foxington. Uh, she she basically is kind of like as it's kind of like I sometimes wonder if she's really related to Nick Wilde, but whatever. Another character is kind of like this good Samaritan or philanthropist, which is a guinea pig called Professor Marmalade, who he's the one who's gonna get a award because he gives charity and all these things. He's the one who actually decides to take the bad guys as an experiment in order to rehabilitate them to become good people. Although there is also, I might, if I say more, I might say that I'm gonna cross into spoiler territory. But let's say that once you see a lot of movies like that, this character is gonna become very, very predictable in its outcome and all these things. But apart, and even that I did, and also even that I did mention that that the fox was one of my favorite characters. Another favorite character, which is kind of like a second tier, is the chief of police, which is this very tough woman, very muscle bound, that she's basically almost like the Inspector Senigata to Lupin the 13th to with her to the bad guys. Because she's every time she appears, she's always have her energy and her dedication to try to catch the bad guys. She does everything. She also has this angry face that is so hilarious, and her reaction to the whole movie is amazing. I just love that character. This character's hot temper. The best way I could describe this character is that I wish this character could meet with the policeman from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, because these two have kind of like the same energy, I'll say. But anyway, these are kind of like my talk about the characters. Now I gotta talk about the animation, in which this one, like I said many times, that when sometimes there's no point to saying that, well, the animation is great because studios always have this, and they tend to make animation look good. But in this one, I will say that it's kind of like a special mention, in which it's CGI, yes, but they kind of polish it well enough to incorporate kind of like 2D facial animations, that there's kind of like a nice blend into it. And the outcome is that the characters look very lively, very expressive, very cartoonish. It doesn't feel very synthetic. When they emote, you can tell that they can go high on well, how can I best express it? Like, for example, let's take again Disney, for example. Disney has its own style, but for the majority of the time, they kind of keep it up, in the same style. They don't experiment too much. There are a few occasions, but they kind of keep it, soft. The emotions are very natural. Sometimes a little bit too realistic, to the point that, well, it's not too cartoony. But in this case, in which they take advantage that it's basically a family-friendly comedy, they have to take advantage that, yeah, they're cartoons. They stretch. They make really dynamic expressions or poses. And it kind of feels like kind of like a step forward, like those other in a way, Netflix animated movies came to my mind, but this is kind of like better than those, I'll say. For example, I like the character, doing this kind of like this shit-eating smiles that I really love, that they show their teeth. Kind of like shark teeth. Almost everybody has shark teeth, and we have a shark in this movie. or sometimes you see lots of people piling up and to form kind of like that, like you're not getting away with expressions, and man, that is that I enjoy out of it. And of course, if I want to be a little bit nitpicky, this is a world in which we got anthropomorphic animals, and there are also normal animals, and there are humans also coexisted. But you know what? At least this movie, this world setting is more believable than this garbage movie Tom and Jerry did, last year. That's technically a lot of all the things that I had to talk about animation. Now here's some a little bit of some elements, and I'm gonna try to combine it, with the nitpick. For one, there is a little bit of a MacGuffin that it involves a meteor. Well, not exactly a MacGuffin, a plot device, I'll call it. It's a plot device that it involves a meteor in which it's kind of a little bit dark, in which they talk about the city that they had a tragedy in which a meteor just landed in the middle of them. And honestly, I thought that a meteor landing on a city could give a little bit more collateral damage, but I digress. But anyway, this meteor, it's kind of weird that it has a heart, kind of like a heart shape like this. And in my head, it was like, where did I see something like that? And no, I'm not going to say Kingdom Hearts, just in case. I thought that I think I saw something else in which there's something like, something heart shape. But of course that I will, at the moment, this comes to say that I do nitpick that there are some jokes that kind of doesn't land and some doesn't. Remember the meteor thing? There's a little bit of a running gag in which they kind of compare the meteor to a butt. And that they kind of wanted to run the joke, to the point that they extended for kind of like a minute, I'll say. Doesn't seem too long, but it feels like they wanted to stretch that out. And well, at least it was fun. It gave me a chuckle, but it's not exactly kind of like laugh out funny. The laugh out funny moments are usually when it comes how can I say, intentionally cynical. Like for example, probably I kind of gave out a little bit of laughter to this really conservative news reporter, in which there's a moment in which the bad guys are captured, and this reporter is like, and here you go, guys, you that kind of proves that you must always judge the book by its cover. So the stereotypes are real and everything. It's something that only Fox News will come up. So man, that was kind of like hilarious, at least in my opinion. As for, I did mention that there are some moments in which I could see, I could polish this movie to make it a little bit darker, but it's mostly involving, let's say, the snake, I'll say, because it kind of falls kind of like in the same trap in which it kind of say that, yeah, we're turning good guy, bad guy, there's betrayal, there's everything, but in the end of the day, friendship is very important. Yeah, you know what? I know that it tries to point out that, the value of friendship. I get that. But I think it will be a little bit more daring if they kind of come up with a family-friendly movie, not the adult ones, the family-friendly movie, in which it kind of shows that there are some friendships that are not worth it. And considering the attitude of the snake and his arc that it goes through, that will be, interesting if they could have gone to that route, but they played safe. And you know what? It's not exactly a bad thing, because they did manage to to mold something that it was to keep it family friendly, but at the same time has its own unique things. It's just it's just a small thing that I just kind of wanted to kind of like a little bit of a nitpick, I'll say. But now that I think about it, it will be very, very hard to pull that out, especially when a little bit the heart and soul of the movie is basically the friendship between the wolf and the snake. And it's really, really shown, even at the beginning, where they kind of have this Quentin Tarantino style opening, where they're just sitting at the bar, kind of like chatting. Most of the chatting is because of how Snake hates his birthday, which fun thing. I'm not gonna mention who, but I do have family members that they're like that. So that's kind of relatable, considering that it comes from a snake. But basically the whole opening, it kind of treats itself like a Quentin Tarantino movie, that it ends up with a bank robbery. But what I meant is that when you cement kind of like a character, doing something like that, for a family-friendly movie, it's gonna be a little bit hurtful if they kind of let you find this breaking. So, but I found kind of like this kind of like opportunity by saying that sometimes we have to learn how to choose our friends, which not many family movie kind of teaches. But either way, again, I forgive it. I forgive it because, well, it was. I just had a flat out enjoyment out of this movie. So basically, the bad guys, really entertaining. Really, really entertaining. Very simple, to the point. Nothing, groundbreaking. The animation is really fun, very energetic, very dynamic. I really, love the characters. Yeah, well, even the snake, I will say. Sorry, I got a bias against snakes, I will say. I like the character arcs. I like the actions. I like the some of the humor. So it's a really likable movie. Very innocent, very harmless. I give it a high recommendation. And please support this movie. When I went to the theaters, there was only kind of like 7 or 8 people. So yeah, give this movie the support, and you will see that, well, this movie isn't that bad as you think of.